All right, welcome everybody. Good to see new faces, new old faces, and you know, um, it's outdoor. It's our first outdoor, my first outdoor at least. Um, you have sheets now, some sheets here, and then I have some posted on the chat. So if you wanna, it's on your phone. If you wanna follow that way. So I decided to discuss the idea of the heart, not just as an organ and as a health topic. It's an important health topic, but there are a lot of other things connected. And over the last few years, I've been researching the ideas of heart, physiological, emotional side of it, spiritual side of it, and there've been a lot of new things that have come out in the recent years, both in research and different ideas that we are witnessing, and quite a renaissance of new knowledge that comes out. Some of it is valid, a lot of it could be fake. Clickbaiting is going on, and people try to post all kinds of reels, shock and awe of information. But we all binge watching to a degree, and we, going through all this information, trying to uncover truth that was so carefully hidden from us. It could be historical narratives that were lied about, and politically, for sure, it's constantly going on. But when it comes to health, we know very little about important things. And the important things, I mean the things that most people are concerned about. And the concern is primarily what makes Americans and the world over, makes people sick and disabled in the form of metabolic health, is the heart disease, it's cancers and other metabolic diseases that the world is battling. And that creates obviously a need to know more, to understand more. And the person that's more holistically minded will do research on his own in order to first of all have confidence, not to be afraid of certain things. Sometimes a person has a hard week or has a stressful day, and he can see very clearly how it affects his heart health. People complain about their, they have chest pains and discomfort, and they can't sleep, they wake up in the middle of the night, and all of that amounts to quality of life that's being jeopardized. The person can be rich with money, with wealth, can have everything as far as the physical comforts of life, but if the health is not in order, then it becomes a primary concern. They say that a person can have good health and 100 problems, and if he has a bad health, he only has one problem. It's how to get better. The topic of heart is very much related to Torah and the Jewish spirituality. Everything that we know about mind, consciousness, in Torah, everything is related to heart. Sometimes metaphorically, sometimes directly. To sway someone's heart, don't let your heart be troubled. These are the expressions we use daily. And the Torah is no exception. There are thousands, I don't know, thousands, but hundreds and hundreds of psukim in the Torah, in Tehillim, in Mishlei, throughout the Torah itself, that refers to heart. Heart as a seat of the soul, as a mind of the person, as an esoteric and metaphysical concept. And for some reason, human beings did not consider mind to be particularly connected to a brain. In fact, the Torah doesn't mention the word brain ever. There's not a single word for moach in the Torah. It's a later term. It's used in Kabbalah as far as the mochin. There's different attributes to that, but idea for mind always stayed with heart. Kavanat halev, ta'avat halev. These are strings of the heart. These are the expressions that we use. We say Shema every day. So we say V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavecha b'chol nafshecha b'chol ma'odecha b'chol levavecha. The Rashi says, comments famously, why does it say levavecha was 2 bets and not was 1 bet? It should be lamed bet chav sofit. Why does it say 2 bets? So Rashi famously says it's to address the 2 inclinations of the heart, Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara. Many different pirushim that surround it. Ramban has a pirushim, extensive pirushim. Obviously, all of this is outside of the scope of what we can fit into this presentation. But this is just a springboard, a stepping stone for you to do any further research on this topic, because it's a fascinating idea. And I'm going to bring some of these ideas forward, and then you be the judge of how you want to address it, because to me it's been revolutionary. It's been outside of what I've been told my entire life, and now more and more people are coming out. And I've been doing medical stuff for the last 20 years, and this is for the last 2 years probably I came across several things that may revolutionize the entire thinking around the heart and well-being of the person. So Ramban, which is right under the pasuk, B'chol levavecha, it says B'chol levavecha hu hadat. It's the mind, which is v'hu kinui. It's another word for ruach asichlit, ruach hamaskelet. Ruach hamaskelet is a spirit, intelligent spirit that's in us. That's the heart, right? You see how quickly we're already drifting away from a basic definition that you all have of the heart as being just a pump that pumps the blood, right? And we're going to discover some things that makes it absolutely not a pump, but it's 80-20. It's like 20% pumping something and 80% something else. There are 10 cranial nerves. They're coming out of the stem. 12 cranial nerves. Number 10 is a vagus nerve, which is a traveling nerve. That's vagus means it's a wandering nerve, and it's a physiological anatomical fact that the vagus nerve goes through major organs, picks up information, and it feeds 90% of the information fed to the brain from the vagus nerve to the brain, not from the brain to the vagus nerve. This is a disarming statement, meaning if vagus nerve gives 90% of information to the brain, what's brain doing? It only commands 10%. Some hypothalamus wakes up, creates a couple of hormones, stuff like that. But the rest of the stuff is information being reuptaken from the rest of the body by the vagus nerve and fed into our system, like for analysis. It knows the digestion, knows what you're missing, what nutrients you're missing. All of a sudden you have a craving for this and that. We spoke about pregnant women. They have craving for different foods. Where does that come from, right? So all of that is the amazing nervous system that supplies it. So the heart is no different. The heart is not just as a pump, it has many different aspects. And we see it innately. We understand that heart has pain and suffering and understanding and certain conscious presence. And we don't know where it's from, but we know it's there. We know it's not just sitting there pumping 40 liters of blood every day, and that's not where it stops. People swear by putting their hand on their heart, right? Cross my heart, they say. Yeah, they raise their right hand. Right hand, by the way, is also another major go-to, and people don't really have an idea. I mean, adults are tying their right shoelace, putting right shoe first, not the left shoe. In the shul, everything is a yamin Hashem osechayil, yamin Hashem romema. Right hand. I respect children if they don't do something with right hand. Left was always considered sinister and bad, and right was good. And in Kabbalah, the right is the chasadim, and the left is the dinim. And heart is an interesting organ, right? It's positioned, the apex of the heart, which is the tip of the heart, is positioned towards the left. It's not on the left side. It has a little bit divot in the left lung to accommodate the heart, and heart is turned. It has a shape of tetrahedron, and it's 36-degree angle, which equals 9, so like 36-degree angle. Why such a position? Why not straight up? I mean, we're a symmetrical shape, right? Left hand, right hand, we're kind of down the middle, symmetrical, right? But heart is this way, stomach is that way. You know, it's not like a circle and a tube in a circle, right? It has its own shape. So you see that everything has a certain direction, certain zigzag to it, certain correspondence to it, right? Basic physiology of the heart by itself is already complex. You would think the heart does something more than, you know, like other organs. Like liver makes tons of hormones, has a lot of functions. Kidneys obviously regulate pH and other things. But the heart seems as a vessel, right? It brings deoxygenated blood in, sends it to the lungs, and brings the oxygenated blood back into the heart, and then puts it out to the rest of the body. The process like this. You'll see on the picture here, you have a inferior and superior vena cava on the left side, which is the right side of your heart, left side on your picture. There's two blue veins that come up, the vena cava. So they bring it into the right atrium of the heart. Right atrium of the heart has a tricuspid valve that puts it in the right ventricle. And then from right ventricle, it goes through pulmonary valve, it goes into pulmonary artery, and goes to lungs to be oxygenated. Then it comes back through pulmonary vein. On the right hand side you see two veins over there, pulmonary vein, comes into mitral valve, through mitral valve, and comes into left ventricle, and there through the aortic valve it at a high speed goes out to the rest of the body. And the aorta is the biggest artery that we have, the biggest diameter that we have, and the aorta is responsible pretty much delivering it up to your brain in the circle of Willis under the brain, and goes further, and then the rest of the body gets the blood that way. If you look on the right side, it shows the greater schematic of what happens. So you see that it goes to the organs, it goes to the liver, it goes, by the way, all the blood goes through the liver. Liver is the manager of the body, it goes through the liver, and then it circles back and through the venous systems comes back. So at the first glance, it's a mechanical structure that accommodates a circulatory function. Arteries, they dilate, it's a muscle, and veins, they're not muscle, they work on a check valve where the pressure builds up and it opens up to the next section and the blood is returned back. Now people assume that that's normal, but if you ever worked in any capacity as an engineer, you know that this system is absolutely not reproducible in the real life. This system is not something that you as an engineer would build. Why? You have a gravity and you have fluids, right? Fluids in your body, and the fluid's supposed to travel from the heart down to the body and up back to the heart, correct? Now, if the heart is a pump, where would you put the pump?
The bottom.
At the bottom. You wouldn't put it at the top, because by gravity the water would go down, then the pump would push it back up. That's what you do in your swimming pool, that you do any other lower place where the water is. You put the pump there and pumps the water up. That's the goal of the pump. The water slows down towards the pump, then the pump spins it and throws it back up at the high velocity, and then slows down again and comes down again, right? Makes absolutely no sense from an engineering standpoint. But the body, HaKadosh Baruch Hu devised it in a way that we have this innate, it's amazing system that works. And for centuries, they did not really know how it works. Descartes, on the left side on the bottom, Descartes was the first one that said heart is the seat of the soul, but it's just a pump. It's a mechanical device. Descartes looked at the body as a machine that pushes the fluids in and out. He actually compared it to a boiling water, action of the boiling water, and fire without light, he called it. Obviously, it's a little bit far from truth, but in his time and day, where they couldn't just open up the body and see the circulatory system in action. Not that we can see today, we just assume a lot of things as well, but we have a little bit better idea. We can perform open heart surgery, so we can see some things in action. But nevertheless, we don't really understand. It doesn't really make sense. So they'll tell you, and I've spoken to several, cardiologists, electrophysiologists. They're friends of mine. I talk to them, and I ask, I said, how does this make sense? And I say, well, you have muscles in your legs, and the muscles constrict, and they push on the veins, and the veins pump blood back, and that's how it ends up back in your heart. In a vena cava, it comes in not as fast as leaving from aorta, but comes in at quite a fast pace. So how does the blood that went down all the way to your legs, to your toes, slow down pretty much to a stop? Because what the blood does, it needs to drop off the nutrients at the capillary level, right, to feed the cells, right, to bring oxygen, nutrients to that part of the body. So it comes to the end of the body, and we know on the capillary, we'll see in the microscope, we see that on the capillary level, the blood moves, does like a shimmy type of thing, like a moves like that, drops off the nutrients, there are receptors for different types of nutrients, and it starts coming back. As it's coming back, for whatever force moves it, it starts slowly picking up speed from the capillaries to bigger veins, from bigger veins to major veins, and then comes back against the gravity up to the heart, right? And it is the most wondrous experience that one can behold. So, and I asked the question, I said, if the muscles are doing it, what happens to paraplegic people? They should just die on the spot because they have no muscles in their legs, they're skinny like this, they're sitting in the wheelchair. What moves the blood? And they don't have an atrophy really, meaning they don't have onset of gangrene or anything like that because there's no blood flow. There's blood flow there, right? God provides the blood flow.
The incoming blood doesn't force it. It's because it's not a circuit, right? Because it has to go back.
Right.
So incoming blood doesn't push it back up.
So then I ask you a bigger question. A small tiny pump like a heart with a small thin walls, all of a sudden you have a close to 40,000 miles of veins and arteries in your body. Do you think an engineer would agree that small pump like this can push liquid through a length of a tube? Like you can go around the earth, the amount of veins and blood vessels that you have, right? Wow. So how can this tiny pump like that push liquid? Like I'll give you a pump and then I'll go around the earth with a tube and I say, okay, this pump is gonna, with one pump is gonna push and we're gonna see the water come around the earth. You think it's possible, right? So that's an even bigger question. So you don't want to go there because then once you go there, then you start questioning the mechanism itself. At least now they say, okay, there's some kind of a pressure that's built up in the body and it brings it back up, because even they don't go to this and they don't say, okay, it's it pumps by itself somehow. Now this discovery, when they came up with a total heart replacement, heart replacements were not a thing. For a 1960s South African doctor made the first heart transplant, and after that, the race was on for the. All right. So we're going to continue from this point on. So what I'm trying to say is that mystery of this circulatory system. There are abundant mysteries there. Now, what we've learned to do is to control somewhat. We know. Like plumbers, like bad plumbers, the doctors in general, they're licensed, to do whatever. But if you were to remove the licensure, you would find a lot of bad plumbers and bad carpenters and bad whatever, right? A good Japanese carpenter would do a much better job than a dentist, right? Like screwing the thing. No? Although, yes, there's a lot more refinement today with new technology and tools and other things, like you do implant dentistry or you do some kind of ortho stuff, with bones. There's a lot of tools now, and without tools, the doctors are kind of useless, right? He needs those tools, but we're treating it as a machine. We're still treating it as a machine, based on the Descartes assumption, and we cleaning the pipes. We're putting stents in the pipes, right, for the flow, to restore the flow. Now it's like me going to a river and deciding that I want to put a dam over here and create some electricity or whatever, and then it floods a large area of the forest. Lo and behold, there was a home to some insects or some marsupials, I don't know, and now they're gone, and now the whole ecosystem is suffering because I decided to put a dam over there. So we don't really know what we're doing, right? We only see the after effects of what we've done, and the same applies to any systems in the body. We throw drugs at it, we do surgery, and then we'll see the people are suffering. Then we'll do studies about, the what's called the market, post-market studies of how many people died, who had what. But we'll continue experimenting, and that it's no different. And the excuse is, go ask the guy who just got a new heart pumping in his chest that could have been dead 2 weeks ago, now is alive, right? Wouldn't you like that? Yes, yeah, everybody. And when it comes to saving life, getting extra kidney, saving life, a child, let's say, life that has potential, of course we sign me up. And that's what moves the machine forward of experimenting and doing all these new technologies and studies and drugs and so on. But nevertheless, we understand that retaining our original body and our original health is a lot better than playing a bionic man and replacing parts and organs and so on, because unfortunately with all these investments we still are not achieving a good lifespan for people who had heart replacements. They don't live long, and they also develop a lot of different diseases. There are other cancers, there's kidney failures and other things, because it's not yours, right? It doesn't work in a concert with everything that you've got in your body. Also, the phenomenal thing that's been happening, and now used as a segue to go to more metaphysical sides of things, that people who had a new heart all of a sudden from another person, all of a sudden would develop desires for different foods. And there was a 7-year-old who started climbing mountains because they checked, and the original guy who died in a motorcycle accident or whatever, he was an avid mountain climber, or he liked pizza, and then this guy now likes pizza, and he hated pizza all his life, stuff like that. And it's anecdotal, obviously, but we understand that sometimes it's not as simple as what they would tell you. Aryeh Kaplan has a wonderful book called Encounters. It's a small book, and he starts off the book with examining this philosophical idea: what happens if one day medicine goes so far as to implant someone else's brain into someone else's head, right? Or head implants. Now in France, I think they're thinking of, can we reconnect someone's head to another person's body?
They've been doing lobotomies in France for years.
Whatever.
Oh, sorry.
Well, it's a guillotine and this stuff. They're good at chopping heads. They didn't know how to reconnect it, but they had plenty of heads available. The Robespierre's head would be a fun thing to attach, to another body and see what happens, right? So, but he says that when person has a heart replacement, right, and he points at himself and says, "This is me," what is he pointing at? Well, the person usually points at his heart. It doesn't say, "This is me," right? This is me, right? You point at your chest, and what is that person? Who is that person? Is that you? It's definitely someone else's heart, right? So what is me, right? If person lost an arm, let's say they cut off his arm, is part of him in that arm? What is him? So Torah believes that we have a circulatory system, and that's what's considered life. Kidam hu nefesh, blood is the nefesh, and the heart that circulates that blood provides it with the living force that God put in us. Dam is the nefesh, and what animates the nefesh is the heart. And the moment the heart stops, then we consider that a end cessation of life. Now I'm going to discuss a little bit later that brain death is not really dead, and many rabbinic authorities don't consider that death, even though it's been in the later, this past generation, couple of generations, it's been very much accepted to declare people brain dead and therefore turn off machines and take away their organs. That's, I think, primary reasons they want the organs, right? You notice that when you get a new license, it doesn't say, "I don't want my organs donated." It only has an option: I want organs donated or nothing, right? And there's a little box where anybody can pretty much put a checkbox and say, yeah, the checkbox. it's a horrible thing, and the person is just cut open, and and there have been cases where people who are alive and they're being wheeled in to get the organs. The funny thing is, the person has to be alive for the organs to be harvested. Any EMT will tell you, any EMT person working on the ambulance, they have a protocol that if the person is a donor and he's ends up in the hospital in an ambulance, they have to make all kinds of heroic efforts to keep them alive until they get to the hospital, because once the body dies, the organs die. So when they're cutting the organ, they're cutting it out of the living body, right? And they do. In an article recently, a lot of doctors did not like being working for the implant teams. Surgeons that worked for implant teams suffered some psychological issues, because they're cutting into a person. There's heat, there's the blood pressure, there's all the signs of life, and now they're supposed to remove the liver and give it to someone else, right? So they have a problem with that. They say, how could I be doing this every day? I'm killing somebody. Particularly in the Jewish halachic sense, a goses is not to be touched. Goses is a person who could be 5 minutes from dying, but you're not allowed to touch them. And in fact, it says that somebody touched the goses is mekarev mitato, is shofech damim, considered shofech damim, and we don't attend to the person like that. Yeah.
What about donating a kidney or outside of this topic of the heart?
Yeah.
Donating. I read that you can donate up to 60 to 70% of your liver to someone who needs a liver,
Yes.
and your liver will regrow.
Regenerate, right? It's one organ that regenerates.
So what about that? Is that
Right. So it carries risks. Now the Torah says nobody is obligated to take the risk. Yes, it could be a mitzvah, and particularly if the person is giving it to his loved one, the family, and a lot of us here would give it to our children, grandchildren, whoever needs it. And in fact, I don't like when they give their only kidney, one of the kidneys, to a stranger. Why? Because what if somebody in your family needs it? Like what is the like why waste a kidney? I mean, it's still, again, mitzvah is a tremendous mitzvah. Meaning, if somebody does do it, but I would say is under no obligations to. If they would ask me, I would say no, you're not obligated to give. Absolutely not. It's not the point the other person is going to die. It's a point of bodily autonomy. You have a bodily autonomy. You cannot do anything. There's a Gemara. I divert to a Gemara that says there was a man, the Allah tina belibo. Tina belibo means that his heart was sickened with love for a certain girl. And he wanted her a lot, and they came to the rabbis and they said maybe we should arrange something. So maybe says you should marry her. So she doesn't want to marry him. He's some schmuck. I don't know. She doesn't want to marry him. He says okay, maybe he can touch her, and to relieve some of his heartache, maybe he can interact with her in some way. No, what are you, crazy? She's not a dog. She's not a piece of meat. Absolutely not. Maybe he can talk to her from the fence. She'll stand on one side of the fence and whatever. So Rabbi says, we can't force her to do anything. She doesn't want to talk to him from across the fence. Let him die and not talk to her. What do we care? So that Gemara clearly demonstrates autonomy of the body, where we can't just take the person and say, someone's dying and now you have an obligation to go save his life. He doesn't have obligation to save the other person's life at his own detriment, even at his own discomfort, what it seems from this thing. Because if I don't want to do it and you're making me, then I'm a slave. Then I'm at your command, right? There could be a mitzvah. You can speak to the person. You can convince them. But for you to say that they have to go and do it, you're touching something that's holy. That's the God does not want people taking, unless you're in China, the Falun Gong follower, that they take their kidneys without anesthetic in jail and give it to whoever wants on the free market, right? Because there's a shortage of kidneys, right? So where they're going to come from, right? So that already opens the door to corruption and other criminal activity, because if there's a demand, there will be a supply, right? And how many people go missing every year? How many children go missing every year? Nobody knows what happened to them and so on. So the question becomes, can we set up a society where some rich man is able to pay for a kidney or a liver, now gets to...
It creates a market.
Sure, creates a market. So what stops a cartel from grabbing some kids off of the streets in Brazil or in Colombia and harvesting their organs on the doctor's whatever and sending them off to the United States, right?
So you're saying it's a test?
What is that?
It's a test of Emunah, basically?
Well, this it's not a test of Emunah. We right now we're talking about rights. Yeah, what rights do I have? What rights another person had? Everybody, live and let live. But the moment it becomes a detriment to me, I don't have to do anything for someone else. So it's an interesting topic, but it's a larger discussion on its own. Now, recently there's a Columbia University article that talks about the recent discovery of about 40,000 ganglion cells in above the atrium of the heart, and ganglia. These are clusters of neurons, which are absolutely not connected to the heart. It's an independent cluster of neurons that serves the heart. They're not connected to the brain. There's a cluster of neurons that are dedicated to heart function only. It's like an independent brain. It's a heart brain. There's also enteric brain, which is your intestinal, the butterflies in your stomach, that's enteric brain. And
Also neurons?
huh?
Also neurons?
Yeah. Thousands of neurons. They absolutely don't go reporting to the brain what happens, yeah.
So other countries are very big now doing stem researches.
Stem cell.
Yeah.
Stem cells, yes.
They're doing cloning of other organs. Only in the United States we really don't do any of that stuff. So that's why there's a black market for all those things. But can they reproduce certain things? Probably.
Probably China probably is doing some stuff. And look, COVID was gain of function. Now it's all coming out that they were doing gain of function. And
And said they found type 1 and type 2 diabetes. They found a way of how to reverse the insulin. And make
Japanese knew how to reverse it long time ago. There are plenty of studies without stem cells and other things that.
So they're doing all these studies. Germany is also one of the leading countries.
Right.
Only in the United States don't allow it. That's why a baseball player who
Yeah.
blows out his shoulder,
He has to go to Mexico to Tijuana, yeah.
Only we here not allowed to do it.
Right, because it's a mafia, whatever. It's a AMA is whatever. It's a mafia, and it's like they dictate pretty much how. I mean, yes, they'll claim safety. It has not been tested. Not enough studies. Not enough whatever. Yeah, I mean, honestly, each country gets to decide what they want to accept as a cure or not.
I'm reading an article so crazy now. In the near future, they said they have something that a woman doesn't have to have a child no more. It will be done in an incubator and have a child.
Okay, I want them to.
Diamond lab babies.
I think.
There is technology behind everything.
Yeah, I think they should start by fixing potholes on the Woodhaven, and then we'll move on. I think a lot of things we hear is like, some aspirations that what they want to do as opposed to what really possible. But many things are possible. You're right. But there's such a thing as medical tourism. People fly to other countries to get a fraction of the price for the surgery. They're operated by top surgeons who went to educated in England and whatever. They're excellent surgeons, except you can't sue them like in America. It's a different liability is different there. But the same token, any advancement that you cannot stop progress. So they have to be able to test certain things out and see if they can get better results. But the countries do reserve their. I mean, you don't like to be here, go get surgery somewhere else. But the same token, everybody flies to the United States for a surgery, right? For the same reason that to Israel they fly for a surgery. When it comes to emergency medicine, I think we've got it like it's a top of the line, right? But other things like more metabolic things, they're money makers. So why should they cure?
There's no money in cures.
No money in cures. Yeah, money in sick people, no money in cures. All right, so.
So there's also heart cells in the knees or something like that, right? In the kneecaps or behind the knees, and that.
No.
It's brain cells that are in the knee as well.
There's a neurons. Okay, there's neurons. So the question is this a neuron that has an axon going all the way to the brain, like my finger? I move my finger. I move this finger as C8 nerve. All right, it's a C8 nerve. I know that it's connected, and if I have my cervical syndrome or something and it's blocked, then all of a sudden I have a tremor or I have something in my finger, and I know where it's coming from. Because the axon is actually running from my spine all the way down to the tip of my finger, and if the person has neuropathy or anything like that, so then you know to trace it back. But then there are neurons, like heart neurons and enteric neurons, that are not connected. We don't have an axon running all the way back to the brain, reporting, knocking on the brain's door saying, can I do this? And in fact, we know such a thing as knee-jerk reaction. That's what you're referring to. As a knee-jerk reaction is where the neurons in the knee, they react before the brain knows about it. It's called knee-jerk reaction. There's also this idea of precognition. There's some research being done that your heart knows way before you get punched in the face. You see this in the slow motion cameras that actually show this very clearly. The guy's sitting there and they throw like a soccer ball at him or whatever, and slow motion camera is showing the soccer ball hitting his face, basically deforming his face, right? Everything going around like this, and he does not realize, like, there's no reaction until like a couple of hundredths of a second in, and all of a sudden you see the eyes widen, and then there's some neurological reaction to the hit. But many people react and they turn all of a sudden because their heart senses something, right? Something scares you, or something in the background, and all of a sudden you react to it, right?
How do you know that's the heart?
Because your heart actually reacts to it. You feel like a little jerk. You'll feel a little pain. You'll feel like people are been scaring each other for centuries now, right? So many times it's like, oh, okay, I almost had a heart attack, right? Why I almost had a heart attack? Because heart reacted first. Everything else followed, and usually people have tremors after. Like a whole nervous system kind of catches up to it, and as the tremors and adrenaline starts pumping or whatever. But initially, it's the heart. Somehow there's a response where heart just pushes the blood in, and for that you need a dedicated system of neurons that governs that contraction, immediate contraction. It doesn't have time to go up and down and create action potential, an axon, it's too long, right? It's not going to react. We actually wouldn't exist unless we had a good reaction time, right? Wouldn't be able to run away from danger, right? And react to things. So, this is a drawing of Leonardo da Vinci, who was actually accredited first, to discover the true circulation of the blood in the heart. The blood in the heart does not just go in and fills the atrium and the ventricle and then gets pushed out by constriction. So you have an AV node, SA node, right? AV node on top, SA node on the bottom, bundle of His goes to Purkinje fibers and then creates the contraction, right? It's called polarization, depolarization, yeah? And that action potential exists in the heart, and from the outside, that's all it's doing, right? It's squeezing and letting go, squeezing, letting go. So you have systole, diastole, right? Diastolic and systolic, right? Two ends of the stick, and then you measure blood pressure that way, right? But we also have aortic sensor, right? We have an aortic sensor, and we have carotid artery. We have a sensor there that looks at a volume, blood volume. And when blood volume changes, it reacts throughout several organs, kidneys, liver, and reinstates, let's say the blood pressure goes down right away. Long term, let's say the blood pressure is dropping, the body will act against it and bring it back up. How does it bring it back up? Yes, Daniel, do you want to contribute? Okay. so the way it does it, it doesn't start with the brain. It's actually kidneys. Kidneys sense the volume change, release the hormone called renin. Adrenals get involved. They create adrenaline and aldosterone. Aldosterone goes into the kidneys. Renin is released, goes to liver. Liver goes up to the lungs, and circles back to adrenals, and tells the kidneys to hold on to the salt, right? Which holds on to water, right? So if we're losing the volume, right, it will hold on to water and increase the volume. If we increasing the volume of too much blood pressure, it will let go. It will shed some of the salt and will let go of the water. It's a diuretic effect, right? So the kidneys really decide, and the Torah says the same thing. Hakadosh Baruch Hu is called. We say it in Yamin Noraim. Many times we say Roeh Chlayot Valev. It's very interesting. We're trying to describe God and how He is involved in our body and our health, and we call Him Roeh Chlayot Valev, one who supervises kidneys and the heart.
That's great.
Kidneys and the heart. Kidneys, nephrology is the most complex thing. Next to the heart is like almost the same, but it's actually kidneys that order the heart to pump faster or do anything. It's not the heart. It's not the other way around, right? So there are many of such things that this is only one of them, right? So, but many such things. So Leonardo discovered that when the tricuspid valve opens up, the blood doesn't just go through the valve; it spins. It creates a vortex. It's interesting. It creates a vortex, and when you create a vortex, the fluid dynamics changes. So if I have a bottle here and I want to pour out water, if I just pour out, it starts being discombobulated, so to speak, and doesn't pour out fast enough. But if I spin it and I pour it out, it goes out much faster, right? It creates a vortex. So you see that right away, when you change the fluid dynamic, it propagates much faster, right? So when the aorta in turn throws out the blood from the left ventricle, pushes it out through the aortic valve into the aorta, it pushes out with the spin. Yeah? Football players know that, right? When they throw, they don't just throw the ball like this. They spin it, correct? They give it a spin. And when you give it a spin, it goes much further, much more precise, right? It has a direction. There's a lot of research. There's a Dr. Tom Cohen, who I watch, is very controversial. He wrote a book on heart. He used to be an emergency room doctor, and he didn't understand how this thing works. He practiced medicine, but he did not understand the mechanics. He wrote a book on it, and he basically claims that there's a fourth state of liquid, water, that covers the insides of the arteries, which gives the water gel-like structure, which allows the blood, like on the water slide, to go through all the arteries much quicker and much more efficiently without much of the pump action. Yes, there is initial pump action to put it out of the heart, and then it goes with that spin. It propagates further, slipping and sliding on this very thin one-cell, gel layer that water becomes as a fourth state of water. You always learn it's a three states of water, right? Yes. Ice is the heart. Yes. Then the water is liquid, and gas, steam, is gas, right? But there's a fourth state of water. That's what they call fourth state of water, is that gel-like substance of the water that now it allows. So together with the fluid dynamics of the heart, with the cover, with the insulation, so to speak, or endothelial, inside of the arteries, endothelial layer, it allows the propagation of the blood throughout the whole system. How does it come back? That's another question, right? How does it come back from the veins? So it somehow picks up the same dynamic in our legs, in our arms, to come back. It's not a simple push. Nothing is pushing it down there. There's no pump down there, right? So there has to be something else in order to create that movement.
Can there be an electrical element here?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yes, the heart is negative. Blood is negative, and all these environments they made neutral. Like your fat is neutral. Your bilipid layer of your cell is neutral, because if it had a charge, then your cells would suffer. You have outside of the cell interstitial fluid, then you have inside the cell. You have sodium-potassium balance. For that balance to exist there, you need an insulation. Like on your electrical wires, you have an insulation, right? So it does not interact with anything, with water, with anything. Otherwise, then electricity has a electromagnetic field, right? And our bodies are electrical bodies. We have electromagnetic field. Yeah.
Do you think that because that we don't spend enough time in nature, like back in the day we would walk on the grass barefoot, and we would get recharged
Yeah.
from the world, from the nature
Yeah.
itself?
Yeah, 100%.
So you think that affects our body today?
Yeah, it's makes you look like a tree hugger, but it's actually true. When you touch trees, you touch ground with your bare feet. Yes, you get recharged, and there's a proof to that. You can actually run the test. I have a little electrical device. You take a meter that hold it, and you can actually see the charge change. You can stand on the insulation like a stone, and then you can stand on the ground, and then you can see the difference. Now, this is not, I mean, I do it with my grandchildren. No, they hold one side and I hold the other side. You can have 100 people stand in a circle, all holding hands. One holds one contact, the other one positive, and you hold. It could be 100 people, and it shows that the electricity goes through all 100. Somebody stops holding hands, it stops.
Yeah, it's true. They
Right.
have a toy also. My sister used to have it.
Sure.
It had a wire. It's a duck. One person holds it. Remember? One person holds it. The other person holds it from the other side, and
Yeah.
the duck starts to move around.
Right. So we're electrical being. Every cell produces a certain amount of electricity, and in general, we can with training, with chi practice, we can create.
About that thing that they're selling online now, the grounding bedsheet.
Yeah, I mean, at some point you have to test it out and see if it works. I don't mind. You can sell me anything you want. Show me that it works. Okay, so the shoulder voltage or whatever, it's an indication. It's some kind of indication.
It's not voltage, it's grounding.
It's a grounding. You're grounding, but question is, they do it with the shoes, right? They drill in the bottom of the shoe. They put a copper contact, so you're contacting the ground while you're walking. I don't know if it's a good replacement for barefoot walking. I'm not sure. There are other.
Now you gotta be careful. Apparently they spread all these ticks around here now.
I don't know about ticks also. Okay, they spread the ticks. Okay.
You spread ticks and then you
You're allergic.
So they can
Allergic to all meats.
right.
So Bill Gates will sell you his non-kosher.
So they couldn't make enough people believe that they ventured into the forest and interacted with some deer, and the tick jumped on them, and that's why they're suffering. So now they're going to say it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's in your house. It's everywhere. Right.
Fused with the pangolin.
Yeah. So right. It jumped from the pangolin to the thing. Right.
Question.
Yeah.
To the back.
So Jewish people, as we know, we're not allowed to donate our organs. Why? It's anyways going to go back to the ground. Isn't it a mitzvah to save
That's-
a life?
That's a very lengthy discussion, but I'll tell you in a short form. There is an opinion that all organ donation, meaning the fact that we don't favor it, is because it's a kibbut. It's not a kavod for the body, right? We treat body of the deceased with certain degree of reverence, and cutting it and experimenting on it is wrong. Even though, yes, eventually every landfill becomes something, right? But we don't toss people in the landfills, right? People that donate, it was a story, I'm not sure if it's a true story or not, but the bodies exhibit, to me, I mean, it's a German, obviously German had to make that exhibit. Of course, makes sense.
Using cheap labor, using cheap
right.
Chinese labor.
Right, I'm saying they can't help
You
themselves.
didn't have to pay them.
If it's a Third Reich or it's a bodies exhibit. It's one or the other. And they say that some woman recognized her son in one of these because he donated his body to science or whatever. And the one woman was at the exhibit and he had a certain injury in his head or something like that. And she recognized it. I don't know if it's true or not. I heard, but it's definitely possible. It's somebody's relative, right? You don't want to be looking at your grandpa and saying, "Oh, it's an exhibit now." It's a traveling exhibit. He's seen more countries than me, right? Okay, right. But
that's
Right.
Paro's curse, right?
Right, exactly. It's right.
Moving all over the place.
So the burial is considered something of sacred, something that mi'afarata v'afarata tashuv. You come from the earth, from ashes. You go to ashes, and so on. But in a short idea is the kavod of the deceased. In fact, the some poskim said that if a person was murdered, and they're looking for a murderer, and they need to do autopsy in order to find the murderer based on whatever happened, recover the bullet or to do chemical testing, in order to follow that would be considered a kavod for the deceased, and that would be allowed, because a person himself would want that to happen. But some people do donate organs, and they believe it's a great thing. Even the corneas of someone's eyes, can help someone to see or whatever. But in general, like I said before, we have a bodily autonomy, and if it was such an obvious thing, that then they would force people to do it, but they can't force people to do it, right?
That's also an incredible human being, because for science to get better, somebody got to sacrifice themselves. Isn't that how the world works?
That's true. We've come a long way, and I can't tell you that if we didn't kill all the animals and experimented on them, or all the human beings that, I don't believe that you have to have those people donating the bodies, and the battlefields of the world are filled with bodies you can examine, just to learn physiology, and that's what they did. That's what Leonardo did. That's what Michelangelo did. They were grave robbers. They would pay to rob the grave and bring the body, and they would dissect them at night. And that's how Leonardo created wonderful sculptures that he created. He has every muscle in the right spot. He made the drawings of all the anatomy from the living cadavers that were recovered. So to say that that doesn't have a place, and advancement and progress doesn't have a place. The question is, do we have to have a moral high ground from which we cannot stoop, because then it leads to absolute anarchy of whatever power. Right? Where's the limit? Where do you draw a line? You're going to start making hybrids of animals and people, and scientists are only happy to experiment with these things, right? So we need to have some stops, right, at these junctions. And but the Torah is only one-sided. We value life. Life is ultimate value. It's not science that's ultimate value. Yes, we're willing to let people die and not be played with, not be desecrated, right? Because then you can justify anything. Any dictator can come in and say, "Oh, I'm killing 500 to save million, so I'm justified. So ends justifies means, so I'm going to do it. And who's going to stop me?" We all agree. And that's why the godless societies primarily is who did it. The communists and Chinese and whatever. They're the ones that are doing it, because there's no higher power stopping it, right? But in the Jewish world, in the Western world, and primarily in the Bible, Bible ethics, biblical ethics, we don't do this for that very reason. Life is terminal. One of the things to bear in mind, that life is terminal, and everybody dies at some point, and therefore to say that it's worth killing people to save other people, they're also going to die eventually, right? So it's not as prudent. Rudolf Steiner, an amazing individual, not a doctor, did many things in his life. He did agriculture, sciences of all sorts. He was a polymath. Lived in Austria. So he's one of the first people after Leonardo that basically said that the heart acts to boost the autonomous spiraling momentum of the blood, rather than acting as the sole source of propulsion. It's not a sole source of propulsion. It starts it, but then something happens in our body that propels the blood throughout, and it's not the heart the way we see it. Tom Cowan said we need to re-examine how the blood circulates in the body and review our understanding of the why and how the heart gets sick and how to heal an ailing heart. The heart ailment is one of the most undiscussed things. They usually always default to plumbing. They always go to you have a blocked artery, you have cholesterol, whatever, block it. And they try to clear it, and then they say, now you're fine. And people are not fine. They get secondary heart attacks, they get strokes, they get all kinds of things. So we're not really fixing it, and that's why the heart disease is still up. Every year it only grows. It doesn't gets better. We have millions and millions of dollars in research, best hospitals, best doctors, and they can't cure a heart disease. There's no such thing. They're going to say, because you're eating these foods and whatever. Okay, fine. I'm eating foods, but so then look into something that saves. Now you have blue zones where people almost don't have heart disease, right? Corsica and Japan and Okinawa and all these blue zones. and they lived over 100. Georgia also, yeah, Caucasus, and they don't have heart disease, and they are heavy smokers, and they drink wine, and they eat cheese. Their cholesterol is like 600.
Chacha.
And Chacha alone can kill. right. So, but now they discovered that smoking is one of the things that helps them out. It's like
Helps it in what way?
Nicotine. Nicotine is one of the most curative things.
Yeah,
In
it's used
in the United States, biggest crop that was ever grown. When founding fathers started this country, they said we're growing tobacco at all times, and not because they all smoked pipes or whatever.
Yeah, of course.
You could buy a bride was the bushel of tobacco.
Huh.
They went down to the port and they got themselves new bride from England with a bushel of tobacco.
And there's the goats.
Every doctor had in his medicine cabinet a tobacco, a derivative. It's an amazing antioxidant. Nicotine is curative. Body has nicotine receptors throughout.
They start smoking again.
So it's not about. I mean, I'm not condoning smoking. I'm just saying, nicotine patches or other things are becoming a thing now because people notice that they don't get sick and they don't have whatever. It is really something to research.
That's
It's
one
a
of the most ancient ways that they back in the days to cure people was through nicotine.
yeah. It's about, yeah. So that's natural compounds that are available in plants that we don't consider as any. I mean, today's medicine doesn't talk about it.
I was 2 days ago at this doctor, he's a holistic doctor, Chinese doctor.
Yeah.
It's amazing what they got in their stores, all the teas, all the...
Sure, ginseng and all the roots. Yeah.
And honestly, it's amazing. They made me my special tea and everything like that.
Sure, they cure just with teas.
Amazing.
Right.
Today's modern world that we live in,
Right.
you have a headache, go get a Tylenol. You have this, go get
Right. You don't treat them. You
And
don't.
honestly, it's amazing. You bring your test results.
Yeah.
You bring your test results, and based on your test results, this doctor can give you the right tea, the right supplements that you can take and heal yourself. That's
Right.
amazing.
Right. I'm in that environment.
What was her name?
It was his.
I'm just kidding.
It was in
So I'm in that environment a little bit. I have my own herbs, and we do a lot of these supplements and teas and whatnot. I don't have Tylenol at home, and
some of the people I saw that came visit, Chuck Schumer came to him, basketball players.
yeah. When it matters, they all run to the real doctor that can deliver results. The cures are only available outside of the medical system. If you want cures, and the cures is a forbidden word. That if once you mention cure, then they might shut you down and so on. But in China, yeah, they welcome these things because that's how they've been staying fit.
Very busy. Very busy.
Yeah.
And people actually come back and they say like, wow, like it's I think it's beautiful because in a way it gives you the modern world where they poison you. You get a medication that heals one thing and ruins 10 other things.
Sure.
And now there's a way that you could actually find that cures you naturally through herbs, what God gave us naturally to use towards our advantage. I think that's
Right.
cool.
Well, there's
You didn't get poisoned by all the medication and all that stuff here, where you already modified your DNA and everything else. You can't really cure yourself with the natural stuff if you already have chemical stuff in you. Just
Yeah, but that you could detox yourself. Your body, that's why you could
yeah, but
detox yourself.
you're ingesting it every
well, Igor has a point because if you're under onslaught of very harsh chemicals, it's very hard to do anything natural. I know people come to me and say, what do? I have this, that. I said, try this herb. Yeah, but I'm on 2 blood thinners and whatever, and this is going to interact with my blood thinner, and I can't take. So what do you want me to do? I'll get off those medications and then try something else. Because, yeah, you're really throwing something at assault of the body. That's what it is. Yeah, go ahead.
Bentsion, you're hinting at the unexplainable mysteries and the wonders of the heart through physical explanations.
Yeah.
Are we approaching maybe a conclusion that there's a metaphysical
Sure,
element
100%.
to this?
So let me give you metaphysical.
Right.
Everybody has heard of intuition. You have an intuition. Is it real or not? Yes? Everybody says intuition is real. I have the premonition, intuition. I have a hunch. What is that? Where does it come from?
The neshama.
My heart, right? It's your heart, I'm not 100%. I'm not feeling right with this. This is not kosher, this thing, right? You walk into an environment, you're talking to people, and you say, not this guy, right? No. That, well, you have a proof? You have a study? Blindfolded study? No. But I feel that it's not. And many times we make decisions based on that rather than proven facts and numbers or whatever. If your heart doesn't lie, the Georgians say, "Kuli arbi mitzvos." My heart doesn't lie. That is not drawn to it. That's it. That's all I need. And everybody will understand, and you can walk away, and nobody's gonna. I don't want. I don't have a heart in it, right? And in fact, it says Hannah when she davened for Shmuel Hanavi. That's where, by the way, where we learn our prayers is from Hannah davening, how we're supposed to daven. We daven quietly, our lips are moving. That entire decorum of davening comes from there. And she says, "V'chana hi medaberet al liba." She's talking onto her heart. Al liba. What does it mean, al liba? When you're talking to yourself internally, your soul, your spirit is internal, and then goes out. We have a toroidal field, right? We affect people. One of the reasons we like to hug each other is that. When people are really happy, a basketball game, somebody throws a last shot from the end of the field, goes in, right? Everybody jumps up and down and starts hugging each other, strangers, right? Why? Why do we have that magnetism and attraction? And we want to bring people within the 3 feet of our aura. Normally we're distant, right? If I stretch my hand and I'm coming close, I better have a good reason, right?
Yeah.
Because why am I bridging this? Why do you feel that there is a boundary here? Why do you feel there is an invisible boundary that I cannot cross? Right? It depends on our closeness, right?
Yeah.
If we just met, it's a handshake. If we're closer, we come a little bit closer. If you Trump, you pull people in, right?
California. No, never mind.
Right? And if you're really close, you hug, you kiss, you have different energetic vibration towards that person, and that has to do with heart. We bring it to the chest. We don't bring it to the leg. We bring it to the chest, right? And in fact, one of the therapies that they do is the dog therapy or horse therapy. They're bringing horses in the hospitals. It's the craziest thing, right? Why would they allow such a thing? Because they understand the patients feel much better if the horse comes into the hospital and the person puts a hand on the horse. The heart of the horse has 10-meter radius of influence. Now, we don't know, saying, is that, but empirical evidence that shows that people feel much better, so we do it. We have about 3 feet. And halachically, it's Dalet Amot. Dalet Amot is your area. If you're stuck on Shabbat somewhere, and there's no roof, you have Dalet Amot that you can move around and you can put objects and you can do whatever. You have Dalet Amot of your own proximity that is yours, meaning you extend 3 feet around yourself, right? It's something that we all understand. That it's not just my body. It doesn't stop at the skin. It goes further. And if it goes further, the beating that we have is the heart. The pulse of our body is the heart. The vibration of our body is the heart. And the moment something changes in our environment, the heart changes, right? Output is different on an instance, and it lets everybody know. It's our alarm. It lets kidneys know, lets liver know, and they pull in together, and they produce hormones. Hormones do their thing. We have adrenaline, and we have cortisol, and we have other hormones. We have happy hormones, right? Serotonin, melatonin, we fall asleep, right? These are happy hormones. So that all comes from how we react to the world. And the reaction to the world is our heart, how we feel about it, and are we calm or not calm? If your heart is racing, you cannot fall asleep. One of the signs of the heart problem is a person waking up 3 a.m. and he can't fall asleep. Most vital thing the body needs, and the person can't do it because the heart says you got to stay awake. You may not wake up, right? At that moment, I suggest you take a drink of water, dilute your blood a little bit, walk around, do something, calm your nerves, and so on, right? Most heart attacks, somebody told me it's true, the Elshire physiologist told me that Monday morning, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock Monday morning is the most heart attacks.
Why?
Why? Because people are expecting stress, right? They had a nice weekend, and now they're going to go back to the work with a terrible boss, with a terrible environment, and they don't want it, and they're already dreading it. And the precognition makes them have this failure, the systemic failure. That's what basically it is, right? The stressors is one of the biggest enemies of the heart because the heart feels it. You can't explain it mechanically, you can't explain it chemically. Like what happened, why? But just from the feelings. That's why we are we are spiritual beings. We are not physical. We're electromagnetic and spiritual beings. Right? We're affected by that. So here, the last thing I'm going to finish says by Shmuel. It says, Shmuel. It tells us Shmuel, Al tabet al mareu ve'el govo. We're talking about Shaul HaMelech when he's electing the Shaul HaMelech, who was tall and handsome, right? So it was first king of Israel, Shaul HaMelech. I'm sorry, I think he's talking about David HaMelech here, because David HaMelech was short. Shaul HaMelech was tall. And now he's going to seek out the new king. So he asked the God, do you think that this is going to be a new king? Is it this little boy is going to be a new king? Then Ishai is going to be a new king? So he says, don't look at his height. Don't look at the physical, right? Ki ma'astiu, ki lo asher yireh Adam, ki Adam yireh le'inayim, ki Adonai yireh levav. I'm sorry, I think Pasuk is referring to Shaul. So don't look at his height, because I have rejected him. Because the person looks through his eyes, and God looks to the man's heart. That is the key, right? The God is looking into your heart. It doesn't care what the physical is. Physical can be anything, but the heart, our courage is in our heart, right? You watch anybody do anything. You say, how does a little guy like this have so much stamina, so much energy, right? It could be a big guy also. It doesn't matter, right? But usually it's a contrast, right? Little guy having a lot of energy, big guy being afraid. Yeah. So you say, doesn't have that courage, doesn't have the heart. Yeah. So that's the bottom line. And the health of the heart is really a spiritual environment that you're in, and emotional environment you're in, and not necessarily physical. Obviously, nutrition is important. All these things are important. But when person is in a good environment, one of the things they notice by Blue Zones, that they all live in a community and they're happy because they're around other people. They're not living alone in some apartment and they're dreadful and in depression, right? And even though they may not have healthiest food, and maybe they don't have gyms and they don't exercise or whatever, but they're happy. They're naturally happy, and that keeps them going and protects their heart. It's a protective to the heart, and still to be discovered. Many mysteries of the heart.
So what's a natural way to, how they say people have a lot of plaque in the arteries?
Yeah, so plaque in the arteries, the babies can have plaque in the arteries. If you examine young children, they might have plaque in the arteries. It doesn't mean the arteries are preventing the blood from flowing necessarily. They always scare people. Oh, it was 90% blocked. One more day. Good thing you came. Good thing you came when you came. You're not allowed to go home. We got to do, surgery. And some cases, yeah, if the person continuously has a stressful situation and the plaque buildup is simply a body's reaction to oxidative stress inside the arteries, and the person is not taking care of it and he continues to have the stress, yeah, it could end badly. But not necessarily because of the blockage, but because the whole system is inflamed internally. Inflammation today by most heart surgeons is considered the number one cause of first heart attack and the secondary heart attack. Because they can open up the pipe in one spot, but if the entire plumbing has a problem, then it's just a matter, it's like you're fixing here and then it breaks there. I know this from the Sefer Torahs. They used to bring me old Sefer Torahs. And they're like old, and sometimes the cloth is called mashuach. Sephardim used to use the mashuach cloth. What's mashuach? They would paint it with white, paint. That's not paint, it's lime-based paint. And they would paint it, and it would not be a chatzitza for the skin because it's considered like purifying it, but they would smooth it out because sometimes the leather was rough, and it wouldn't come out good, was not suitable for writing. So a lot of Sefer Torahs were mashuach, and because of that, the letters would jump, would peel off. They would not bind to the surface. They would not burn themselves into the cloth. It has some acidity, the ink, so it's supposed to burn a little bit into the cloth to stay on. But they would jump, and they would bring me a Sefer Torah, and it's like beautifully written, but it's already jumping. Here, it's peeling off here. If I fix here, it's going to peel off over there. So it's a disaster. Like it's starting to deteriorate, and it's going to systemically happen everywhere. So it doesn't matter if you fix it here. Yes, you might save it for this Shabbat. You might be able to read from this Sefer Torah, but next Shabbat is going to be somewhere else and somewhere else until you're going to close it up, right?
So good, preventative measures.
Natural things is first is a reduction going from sympathetic to parasympathetic. Meaning the switching to relaxed mode whenever possible. Life provides many stresses, right? As soon as you have an opportunity, like this is a nice relaxed, I'm relaxed right now, I'm not stressed. This should be every evening of the person's life. In Europe, they have siestas. They will go on protest if tomorrow they're gonna shut off siestas in Spain or Italy. Why? Because they relax. They go to sleep. They get nice,
Some states even have mandatory that you have Sundays off. If you open a business or anything, they give you a ticket.
That's has to do more with alcoholism than whatever.
In Japan, they sleep under their desk.
Right. So Japan, for instance, is a very stressful country, right, as far as people living in Tokyo. But because they compensate, because they have better nutrition and they compensate for it, they detox better and they live longer. Japanese is one of the longest living
But they
people.
literally have, in their work culture, they have...
Right, to sleep on the desk.
yeah,
Yeah.
under
The
the
children sleep.
Children, but even
Right.
adults.
Right.
Shabbat.
Right, because that's how the body functions. But if you abuse the body, it's eventually going to break down. All right, I did create a new channel for all these videos, so hopefully I'll upload this one there too. In red, there's a YouTube channel I set up, so if you want to, alongside with our channel here, if you want to see it there. There's a Lev Tolstoy. There's a quote, interesting quote. Where is there any book of the law so clear to each man as that written in his heart? The best book of law, that innate understanding of a natural law, that what you need to do and how you're supposed to live your life, is written in a man's heart. Our heart tells us if something's right or wrong, if we're doing something. That's why elevating yourself a little bit and creating some better consciousness and better position. We're a little bit in the rat race. So slowing down, looking around, appreciating what you have. By the way, one of the things is feelings of gratitude is one of the most healing for the heart. That's why people love doing acts of kindness. You did something for someone. You fed a poor person or whatever. You feel much better. Your heart is rejoicing at that point, right? So more of those things that are curative to our inside. Your whole day changes when you do something positive and beneficial. Yeah. All right. Thank you for your kind attention.